G'day guys, how's it going? We are here tonight to go through week 2 of Supercoach AFL finals and for the Game Day Squad finals as well. So without further ado, let's get into it, boys. DR, how are you?
Not too bad, mate, but witnessed an absolute murder on the weekend. Geelong, Brisbane. Injuries aplenty. We're out of form at the moment, but never write these boys off, Rossco. It's going to be a tough task to get over the Suns this week, but I think my boys can just do it, but it's not going to be easy. Janath, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, very good, mate. It's a bit refreshing watching the finals without having having to invest in it too much. Some ripping games. That Freo Gold Coast game, he couldn't script it any better. Roscoe wasn't watching. I was sort of sending him the messages, and he's like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And then Swallow with the point at the end. It was almost the perfect outcome in a way. Just so unfortunate with Fifey on the other end, but it can't go both ways, unfortunately.
Yeah, 100%. Look, some heroic moments, but that's what the finals are all about. And unfortunately for me, I did not have any heroic moments in any formats last week. Very, very stinky week. But hopefully that's why we're here to rebound, as I'm currently sitting top 59% in Supercoach finals after some monumental failures. And I also didn't get above 40th in any of the Game Day Squad formats. So off to a poor start, but there are still 3 weeks to go, boys.
That's right, mate. That's right. I didn't go overly well either, around the 20K mark in Supercoach. And let's just say completely stuffed my GDS final squads, completely stuffed it. But we'll move on from that. We'll move on.
Yeah, not too bad, boys. I don't want to rub it in a little bit, but
Here we go. Nothing changes, does it?
What is it? 6.5K in Supercoach. I'll tell you what, picking a vice captain and captain is very hard in terms of getting both of them right. I think if they bring this in next year, yes, that's what Rossco and I specialize in, but it really does change the game a little bit in the fact that you just go for safety. You just have to go for the safety. And one of the things that I mentioned to you boys last week is how hot I was on Caleb Sarong and did have the VC on him. I guess that's where it's just the small things in that way. In terms of GDS, was very happy across the board. First time competing in the Challenge and Champion competitions. So the 2 top end comps there. Finished 15th in Start and Classic, finished 20th in Challenge, and finished 27th in Champion. So very happy with some debut performances there, and hopefully we can build on from that. And you boys, I know you boys will bounce back this week.
Yeah, here's hoping. Even if it's not for the finals, there's always next year being the Dynasty format. We've got some cards, and obviously, Janath, we've been doing some trading in this off season. So, 2026 could be very much a fresh slate to build up and try and win the season-long leaderboard as well. So, without further ado, I think we should get into the first game of the round. There's only 2. We've got Adelaide and Hawthorn Friday night at Adelaide Oval. The first time first versus 8th has played each other since 2006.
Wow.
Did not realise that, mate. I think this is going to be an absolute cracker. They have played each other a couple of times already this year, and very, very close game. First time they played, Hawks fly late to steal comeback victory over the Crows. That one certainly hurt them there. And then the next time, Crows catch fire is a headline after slow start in Epic's Hawk battle. So this week, boys, I'm finding it really tough to actually tip a winner. Now, I think that the obvious selection should be the Crows, and it's been a long time since the minor premier has gone out in straight sets. But let's be honest, 2025 has been a different year. So I wouldn't be surprised to see any of these 2 clubs get up. I think that there are going to be some relevant players. I'm a lot keener on the other finals matchup that we have in front of us with the Lions and the Suns, but there are certainly some pod-type players to select from. We look at players like your Jai Newcomb. He's actually got a pretty good finals record. Even your Jarman Impies as pods. We've got some of the big boys like your Thriller, who did really well for us last week in both formats. But Jordan Dawson, talk about captains, Janath. He was my Capitano in Supercoach last week. Triple points for Jordan. And not good whatsoever. I think you would have probably got more overall points for your vice captain with Caleb Sarong. So that one really hurt, but I'm expecting some of the blokes that struggled last week to really bounce back this week. So who's your tip, boys? Rossco, who do you think will take out this battle, the Crows or the Hawks?
I think I'm going to take the Hawks. I think after last year, they went to Adelaide Oval and they lost to Port in the semi-finals. Very close game. I think they're going to have a lot of learning that they've taken from that last year. They're probably going to be more grounded than they were. I think they got caught up a bit in the theatre of the whole Hinkley and all that sort of stuff. And I think the Crows look really nervous, really shaky. Dawson didn't stand up. It took a long time for Thilthorpe to get going. Tex Walker was really good, but you can't just rely on him every week. And for that reason, I think the Hawks will cause what I will call an upset. But to me, it wouldn't be much of an upset.
Yeah, agreed on a lot of your points there, boys. In terms of the Hawks, we mentioned last week, were probably not the 8th best team in it. And if it was for the Brizzy game in the last round, they could have been top 4 and playing Adelaide in that final there as well. So I think they're going to be ready for the challenge. The Port matchup, they played twice this season, both close games. And I guess the sort of silver lining for Adelaide is that you might get Josh Rochelle back this week. And whether that is sort of the midfield spark that they need after sort of looking a bit lackluster in the middle. They brought in Rory Laird even into the midfield in the second half against Collingwood, just to no avail. They just got dominated in the clearances. This may be a really sort of contested game, and that could really suit some of those midfielders in terms of Jai Newcomb, Jordan Dawson. But it may also suit someone like a Riley Thilthorpe that we talked about last week as a really good option. He was suffering illness and he still scored really well. So can he back it up? I think so. DR, where do you sort of sit in terms of a tip for this game? Like, what kind of game do you expect?
Look, I think it's without doubt going to be a close one. I'm still going with the Crows. Yep. They're the best. They're the minor premiers for a reason. I think that Jordan Dawson will absolutely stand up this week. He's the captain of the club. He's a really proud player. And in Brownlow contentions we've talked about for most of the year, he'll be super disappointed with his performance last week. The pressure is certainly on the Crows here. Will they be able to stand up to it? That's the big question. But I know with the Lions, it took us a few years to, win a final, win 2 finals in a row, eventually make it to the big dance, had a failure there, then lucky enough to win the premiership last year. It's a pretty long process to actually get there. And I think that finals experience cannot be underrated. And although both teams don't have a heap of finals experience, maybe the Crows coming into this week, particularly some of those younger players, will really know what to expect, what they're coming up against, and be able to prepare possibly a little bit better due to that experience. So I'm tipping the Crows in a very, very close one, mate, but not with any great confidence whatsoever.
Like it, mate. Awesome. Shall we get into some data then?
Yeah, I like the sound of that.
All right. So if we go ahead then into talking about Adelaide Hawthorn from a data perspective, when we put this together, there's a lot of red. And it probably goes to show that this isn't probably the matchup that we're going to be looking to target this week. We'll start up with the defenders then. So Josh Worrell, Mitch Hinge, who got subbed out last week, and Rory Laird. I think Rory Laird played a really awesome game last week against Collingwood. Josh Worrell equally played a really good game as well. So if you're looking for 2 defenders from a GDS perspective, they're really good. But the only problem is that Laird is a midfielder. So he should still have the role. And we saw last week that Lockie Whitfield and Lockie Ash both performed really, really well against Hawthorn as running halfback. So just something to monitor there. On the flip side, Carl Amon could be one that really slots into our backlines this week. Like, we're talking a lot about Brisbane and Gold Coast being the matchup to target, but there's not too many defensive options apart from your Zorko, Wilmot, Noble types that you can really trust. So I think we might have to step a little bit more into the defenders from this matchup in particular. You got Impey, you got Sicily. But I think that the midfield is where it's a bit tricky here. There's only 3 real standout options as midfielders, in my opinion, that you could sort of have a look at. You got Jordan Dawson. His last 3 scores from a Supercoach perspective haven't been great, but his last GDS matchup in the Hawks game, round 21, 144. So really, really good score there. Does he get the Nash matchup? even if he does, you're mentioning, boys, about how he's the captain, he needs to stand up. I reckon he does stand up in this game. You got Saligo and Newcombe, not really good matchups going either way. Potentially, you could say that Newcombe has a good matchup. But, boys, what if I'm to say that Riley O'Brien and Lloyd Mead going up against each other is where you should be looking for your ruck matchups? Over the last 5 games, the easiest and the second easiest matchup going up against each other. We saw last week with Lloyd Meek and Kieran Briggs going up against each other. They both scored really well. Can we expect to see the same from these two rucks in this matchup? What do you reckon?
I think absolutely we can.
Yep.
Riley O'Brien loves playing against Meek. From the looks of it, Meek kind of loves playing against Riley O'Brien. But last week put him in good form. And as you can see there with the DFS, first and second easiest matchup for the last 5 games. So I don't think they're going to be very restrictive on each other. And if the ball's going end to end and just, scoring is high, lots of stoppages, whatever it is, I think they both should just go around with each other most of the game and score pretty well.
DR, what do you reckon, mate?
I've found it hard to gauge your rucks this week. I think it may be a matter of, have you already got 3 players selected in other lines? For me, I think that the really obvious one that we probably don't look at is your Darcy Fort. I don't mind big bad Jared Witts in that matchup, to be honest, as well. So depending on who I run with, I may even go Witsy in the other matchup to go a little bit different because I need to catch up a few points. So I may even look to go there, but they both like playing against each other. Unfortunately, I may have cold feet due to last week, seeing Darcy Cameron coming up against Rob and just not score anything. It was such a frustrating watch. So that puts me off Meek slightly, just knowing what Rob did to Cameron, who I really rate as a ruck last week, which is why I may be swinging a little bit more to Witsy, being an ex-captain, similar to Jordan Dawson, expecting him to stand up. But we'll talk about him a little bit later.
Yeah. Nah, that's awesome there. Then we have a look at the forwards, and we're going to have to pick for GDS at least a couple of forwards from this matchup. And when we look at the forward options, Riley Thilthorpe almost picks himself as just sort of that high ceiling upside guy. Yes, Hawks have one of the best defense in the league, and they'll match up well against him in terms of having Barras and Battle and Co down there. In their last matchup, he scored 110 GDS, and in their last sort of matchup for Supercoach, scored a 90. Ben Keys had a very down game. It's a fun fact that he has actually never scored a goal against Collingwood. But I think, again, as one of the leaders of Adelaide, he should stand up against the Hawks. Now, one of the key points that may be flying a little bit under the radar is who gets the stingy Blake Hardwick matchup. And the reason why I say that is he blanketed Toby Green. He's been one of the best small defenders. Does he go to Ben Keys? Does he go to Alex Neil-Bullen? Or does he go to someone else in that Adelaide forward line? Obviously would have gone to Rankin if he was there. Where do you boys sort of see that playing out?
It's a tough one with Keezy. I think last week, in a way, particularly in those forward stoppages, he was almost trying to play that Rankin role. He's trying to look to get that quick shark. But he's a great battler, Benny Keys, but he's just not Isaac Rankin. And they really did miss him, in my opinion. So, his Keys, he's a type of player that can certainly hit the scoreboard. He's not a player that I think that other teams will look to try to really shut down. If Rochelle plays, do they just make sure that he has zero impact whatsoever? Just say, look, he's probably going to be their most dangerous here in regards to your smalls. Just shut him down. I'm really not too sure about that one, mate. Rossco, you got a bit of a gut feel there?
Look, I think I'm going to back Ben Keys again in Game Day Squad. I think just because of the limited sort of options we have, I'm going to back him for that format. I won't be going near him in Supercoach, but I will be picking both of my Supercoach forwards from this game.
Yeah, agreed with that. You
might be thinking Riley Thilthorpe is one of them. You might be thinking for the other one, it might be Tex, might be Dylan Moore. No. Ooh. My pod forward for this week is Jack Ginnivan.
Ginny. Love it.
I just think he's got a good floor at the moment. As you can see there, he's got his last 3, 84, 97, and 90. He's not necessarily playing as your stereotypical Supercoach small forward who just camps deep inside 50. He's getting around the ground, sort of playing high half forward, almost wing at times. You know, and I think his seasonal average for disposals is something like 21 or 22, which if he gets to that range or better, should be pretty conducive for some decent scoring this weekend. And I think where the options are quite limited. And in the other game, I want to have better options from Brisbane and Gold Coast. I think Ginnivan will be a forward that I'm definitely looking to consider.
I do know that he left the track early today. He ran a few laps and didn't do much. But Sam Mitchell did say in the press conference, he's a lock to play, fine to play, but maybe just something to monitor. I obviously assume he gets up, but yeah, don't know much context around it. But I know that he did leave the track a little bit earlier. Well, I may need to rethink because I've got an absolute lock in my forward line in the next game that we'll get to.
Ooh.
So
I think I know where you're
going. I think I know who it is.
Yeah, well, I'm with you on the thriller though, on the big boy, on the caveman.
An important point we will have to bring up regarding Zach Bailey. I think is.
Oh, just you. How do you do that? How do you do that?
we will chat a bit. We'll chat a lot about the Brizzy forwards, but still on this game, Dylan Moore is the other option you could sort of think about. Really good Supercoach average, but it's sort of inflated by 162. I reckon he kicked 5 goals in that game at the MCG last year. Sort of. Rossco, I think you were a proud owner of him that day, weren't you?
Yeah, I bought him that week. It was great. And then he proceeded to drop 4 70s in a row.
Yeah.
That's the Dylan Moore way.
Look at the data going around. He didn't have a good game last week, playing GWS, but the matchup data is there. Like it's very slim pickings, but I think you could go with Dylan Moore there.
Do you know what I do like about Moore? Sorry, just to jump in very quickly, mate, is the fact that he's got that ceiling. There's other players here that I'm looking at, your Gunsons, your Guineas, your Neil Bullen, your Keezy type, and I really don't see the ceiling there that Dylan Moore possesses. We've seen 140 pluses from this bloke. So in the Supercoach format, knowing that one of your scores can drop out, it's most likely going to be one of those forwards because we've traditionally the defenders and our mids and rucks have scored well. So I think that he is a good type to potentially get in your forward line because of that ceiling, knowing that he can go really, really big on a good day. But
absolutely,
it's a bit of a throw at the dartboard. But hey, a score drops out. We've only got 9 players in total. Yeah. Maybe he's the type you go for with that big ceiling.
You're 100% right, DR. The winner from the round last week did exactly that. He nailed 8 selections, nailed his VC and his captain. Toby Green was the one that dropped out mid-30 score, and it didn't affect him at all.
Yeah.
So,
look, it's one of those things where that's the problem is if you don't nail your VC and your C, you're in trouble. Like it's very hard to get it right there. We're just going to look at some GDS scores from across the teams, and you can see that Tilthorpe led the Crows there, Neil Bullen as well, but there wasn't many standout performers. From a GDS perspective for Adelaide. Rory Laird was someone that looked okay, but then it sort of falls off click. Daniel Curtin is one that I think could have a good game. He performed quite well against Hawthorn in their last matchup. So that could be a forward option for game day squad you could be looking at. If we go over to the matchup for the Hawks in terms of playing against GWS last week, Lloyd Meek dominated sort of Kieran Briggs in that game. Jarman Impey had a really strong game as that attacking halfback, along with Carl Amon as well. Josh Weddle is an interesting defender. He may be the pod that we talk about later on. Straight off the injury, what do we see there? And then when we go over to the 2 matchups, here's some interesting stuff with Dylan Moore. So Dylan Moore was the second highest scoring player, along with Jarman Impey in the first Adelaide versus Hawks matchup this year. And then you got Benny Keys.
Easy.
You got Benny Keys in there. So potentially we may be seeing some common names then. We can see Riley O'Brien and Lloyd Meek both did turn up in game day squad against each other in that matchup. Let's go over and see Jordan Dawes with the 115. Let's see if that followed through in the other game as well. We can see that Riley O'Brien, so this is the round 21 matchup. Riley O'Brien with the 112. And
Meek as well with the 119.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, I can't see the
right up
Lloyd
there,
Meek with the 119. Yeah. But yeah, Jordan Dawson's in there. And I think, sorry, I must have got the matchups wrong. I think it was Daniel Curtin scored quite well in the first matchup. Sorry, 88 there. So we can see some very common, and there's Daniel Curtin as well with the 112 there. So some common names littered throughout, boys. So with that, perhaps we can go in talking about sort of locks and pods and avoids across the formats. Rossco, do we want to talk about Supercoach first?
Yeah, I'm happy to go with the Supercoach lock, pod, and avoid from this game. I think I've got one.
All right, go for it.
So my lock for this game for Supercoach is locked in my forward line again. Had a very ordinary start to the game, but still whipped out a 121 last week. Riley Thilthorpe. I think he's by far and away the best forward option that we have this week for Supercoach.
Awesome. Your pod?
I like it.
All right. As I discussed, I think my pod's going to be my other forward, Jack Ginnivan. I can just see him bobbing up in the key moments, having a nice game, just doing some good things. Like Ginnivan always sort of seems to be there in the moments. Like he'll pop up and kick a goal, and then he'll do some sort of celebration, and it just gives them a bit of a spark. So I just think that if we get like a last quarter key moment from Ginnivan, it could really give him a big score.
Yeah,
I know it's very wishful thinking to sort of think that, but I like him. Now, in terms of my avoid for this week, it's kind of tricky because we know that he's such a good finals player. I think my avoid, it's not Dawson, it's Jai Newcomb.
Okay.
Wow.
In terms of Supercoach, he probably does score quite decently this week, but I still think there's just better options. I still don't think he's within that top 4 or 5 of the pecking order. I think if we back Dawson to have a bounce back, then, Brisbane and Gold Coast playing a sort of ideally what we think is a free-flowing, high-scoring game. I think, there's 5 midfielders or 6 midfielders even that we could consider above Newcomb to be safer in that sense. So I think I'd make Newcomb my avoid from this game.
Like it, Rossco.
Do you want to go with your ones, mate?
All right, well, I'm going to go with the defensive theme for all 3 of mine for Supercoach, mate. So the first lock I'll go with is down back. It's Rory Laird. So 110 Supercoach points last week. Actually attended his first CBA of the year. I remember a couple of years ago, I actually started with the bloke. It got too hot for him. I think he scored a 50 in round 1 or something ridiculous. And after
as well.
Yeah, it did. I remember the captain as well. They absolutely screwed the start of my season, but I've forgiven the desk because he has been a great defender for me in the past. But actually had 26% last week. So basically a quarter of all CBAs he attended. Ended up having 24 touches, obviously contested ones there and some clearances, 4 tackles. And I just think that he looks to be that really solid option that you put next to a Brisbane veteran that I'm absolutely locking as well down back in that game. So I think Rory Laird for me is going to be my lock down back. The pod defender that I'm going with is from Hawthorn. It's actually Jarman Impey. So 106 Supercoach points last week, 28 touches, but the great thing is 22 of those were kicks, and he didn't have a single kick out. So he's not actually relying on those kick outs. He's actually receiving some of the kick outs, and 7 marks. It's GDS gold, not as good for Supercoach, but I think that they'll look to get the ball in his hands. He's an attacking type player. He's someone that does have finals experience under his belt as well. So based off last week, he's probably the number 1 Hawthorn defender for me. I'd have him probably just in front of Carl Aim on there. Yeah. And the avoid, this may be a pretty obvious one, but given the fact that I've got Rory Laird there, I also like Josh Worrell. Mitch Hinge is someone that I would not consider, only the 40 Supercoach points last week and simply behind in the pecking order. So he's not one of these huge names, but let's be honest, we don't have too many huge names to pick from to avoid, do we? So I'll go with that man, my ex-Lions player, as the avoid for this week, mate, as a trio. How about yourself, brother?
Look, from a Supercoach perspective, specifically talking, I'm going to go a little bit rogue and talk about the rucks for a little bit. So I think Lloyd Meek is a lock. Off the 4 rucks, he's the one that I'm most confident on. But equally, I think Riley O'Brien is a pod. Like, you could go one of 2 ways. I think those are the 2 that most coaches will go up between. In terms of Witsy, he's a good ruck, but he doesn't necessarily he's not really the Supercoach kind of guy. And then in terms of the avoid, probably looking in the... It's a tough one. Probably looking at like a Jake Saligo. Like if you're looking for just to fit in a midfielder, probably not the way I'd go. And yeah, so it is a really tough matchup. Basically, anyone that we haven't named is an avoid for Supercoach. I'm just going to go rattle off some of my locks from GDS perspective. Whilst we're talking here, Jordan Dawson, like you got to lock him in. I think Josh Worrell is a really good sort of pod option. Not even a pod, probably one that you can fit right in. And then the two sort of Adelaide general forwards in Keys and Neilbull, and also sort of pods. Then in terms of avoid, probably looking again at Saliga and Newcomb. I think there's better midfielders going around. Boys, do you have any sort of locks, pods, or voids that you'd want to add in?
I suppose I don't know if it'd be a pod, but you've got Carl Aim on there for GDS. He'll always find enough the football to get a half decent score. You mentioned Worrell, Laird. I actually had Newcomb as a potential pod, but I'm happy to chuck him in the avoid list. I don't have a heap of data to support that or anything like that. So not much I can add to GDS-wise. Rossco, anyone else that you'd like to give a shout, mate?
No, I think we've covered it pretty well, boys. I think these guys are sort of the base that we'd be picking, and then I think the rest we fill with the other game. I think there's a lot more happening in the other game, to be honest.
Yep.
And with that, I reckon we go over to the other game.
So we've got Brisbane and Gold Coast. What is this? This is Saturday night. Is it 7:40?
Saturday night, yes.
Is it a night game? Yeah. Okay. At the Gabba, first ever Q clash in finals, which is the first time this has ever happened. Not just since 2006, ever. The first time the Suns have ever played finals. That's just a useless stat for you. Not a stat at all. But no, I think it should be a good game. We've had two very contrasting Q clashes. From memory, Gold Coast won the last one quite comfortably, and before that, I think Brisbane won the first one quite comfortably. So I don't really know who's going to pick up a win here. It should be a very hot game. If anything, being a Q clash, I think it may alleviate the nerves from the Suns a little bit. But I also think that it'll give the Lions, your Lions, the galvanization that they need to just sort of put away their crosstown rivals for the season. So I think it's going to be very close. I'm leaning towards the Gold Coast Suns. I think with no Lachie Neale, it becomes a little bit harder for Brisbane. But who knows? I don't really know. I could flip a coin, and that's probably about as close as I'm going to get.
Janath, I'll go down to you. Because
you went for the...
Well, you may not know how I feel, but yeah, what do you reckon, brother?
Look, it's going to be a very hotly contested game. Both of the games, I think, in the second matchup, someone like a Matty Rowell, who'd normally been kept quite subdued by Josh Dunkley, really got off the chain. Won the game through clearances. That was Anderson and Rowell. And do we expect the same here? Probably not. It's going to be a really hotly contested game. I think we're going to look at a lot of midfield options because I think there are probably five. There's 5 midfield options that you could arguably say are locks in GDS in their own right. And so it'll be interesting to get into them. But yeah, looking forward to D. I'm going to say that the Lions get over the line just because Gold Coast doesn't have a good record at the Gabba at all. So hopefully for your sake, mate, that's what happens. Well, how do you feel about this game?
I don't know how I feel. I really don't. I've become a little bit more confident simply because I was listening to Josh Dunkley today. He had a quick press, only went for 5 odd minutes, but just the way he was speaking, without any sort of arrogance, he just had that silent type confidence. Rossco, I love that word that you use, galvanized. I think that the boys will be extremely galvanized. And look, we're battling at the moment, but think back to our premiership year. Look at the start that we had to our season. We've been battling for the last couple of years at stages. And remember a couple of years before that, our injury list was so clean. We hadn't really had to deal with any type of major injuries, but that certainly flipped on its head. But the positive side of that is that we do have soldiers that are ready to come in and play their role, and they know their role. Lots of these blokes do already have a little bit of experience under their belt. They're certainly not ideal replacements for the blokes that we see out of the team. Your Hipwoods, your Neil types, your Paynes. They're like someone like Neil. He's impossible to replace. You can get someone to try to do the job as best as possible. Like Levi Ashcroft could put his hand up for a bit more midfield time this week. I'm sure that he'll do that, but you can't replace those soldiers. The Suns at the moment, full of confidence and really nothing to lose. And I think that's where the Suns have a bit of an advantage here. They've got nothing to lose. I think the Lions should actually be the underdogs in this game. I know that we are going in as favourites. Is that because we do have that finals experience? Potentially, that's what may get us over the line. Janath, you mentioned before, it's being played at the Gabba, and our record against the Suns there is really, really good. But, boys, I tell you what, if it's anything like what we saw last time, 130 to 64. Now, that wasn't just a loss. That was an absolute belting. But what you do notice, boys, about this Brisbane team is that rarely do they get belted 2 times in a row. So last week, shocking performance against Geelong. We know that my boy Huey got tagged. I flagged that one nice and early as well. I just had a feeling that Scott would go to McCluggage. But this week, boys, I think we're going to come back strong and just get over the line. Just get over the line. We'll talk about some players in a little while, but I think our boys are ready to step up, and we're not going to let this little brother of ours, don't worry about the next door neighbour, Rossco. Actually, when we say little brother, it's like being a father. Like my boys now are bigger than, it's like you just turn around and all of a sudden they're bigger than you. That's how it feels with Gold Coast. And in all seriousness, congratulations to Gold Coast. And I think it's going to be a ripping contest, mate, a ripping contest. But we'll turn up, unlike last week.
Well, here's hoping the Lions can do that. Otherwise, I think next week will be a little bit grim if we're recapping the 3 games of Brisbane aren't there. Although I think, DR, what do you reckon? If the Suns did end up winning this game, do you reckon you'd root for them to go all the way over everyone else?
Look, my Brent Bestmate is a mad Crows man. So with my allegiances to my good mate Brentos, I'm on board with the Crows. But if they go out, I'm Suns all the way, mate. Queensland football. Even though I'm Victorian. But anyway.
Back it in.
I think everyone's a Suns fan at this point. Well, actually, for me, if Brizzy win, I'm very happy for you. But apart from that, I think everyone's a Suns fan. Let's be real.
Yeah, agree, mate.
All right. Got some beautiful data here. There's not so much red on this one, Janath.
Not so much red, especially in the first 2 lines there. And that's why I was sort of saying the rucks is where we should be looking in the other matchup. But when we look at the defenders, I think we got some pretty good options here. So we got Dane Zorko, I think one of those players where he feels quite comfortable starting him in Supercoach, definitely in game day squad, along with Darcy Wilmot as a game day squad option. I know, Rossco, unfortunately, you went with the pod Wilmot last week in Supercoach. Didn't quite work out.
Yes.
So
I was half right, though.
There again. You were half
right.
Half right.
Yeah,
Jasper Fletcher, your boy.
I did load Dane Zorko in game day squad, which was good.
Good.
Nice.
But there was too much else that went wrong.
Jasper Fletcher is your boy.
Yes.
And as a game day squad option, I know that you're very hot on him. We'll see if he pops up as a pod later down the line. And then Johnny Noble, just being uber consistent. You could go then Supercoach, probably not the highest upside play, especially with Daniel Rioli back in, but there's definitely worse options. And he did perform quite well in their last GDS matchup. But here we go with the midfielders. Now, I'm going to give an honourable shout out to the Tuk Tuk, but he's not making my top 5 midfielders. I think in their own individual way, Hugh McCluggage, Josh Dunkley, Will Ashcroft, Matty Rowell, and Noah Anderson are all GDS picks. And then it is out of these 5, plus Dawson, that you're probably picking your Supercoach midfield out of. And if we talk through it, Josh Dunkley's just been awesome in the absence of Lachie Neale. And he's really stood up in the last sort of it probably been the last couple of months, you would say, even with Neale in the side, it's just been uber consistent. He scored 122 last time they played Gold Coast. He scored 125 in their first meeting as well. Will Ashcroft, very similar. He's like the finals player. DR, when we talk about Will Ashcroft, we just think, he's just built for finals. And he showed that again on the weekend. Even in a poor performance, he scored quite well. And then Huey McCluggage shut down on the weekend. But we saw what Sarong and Brayshaw were able to, even Hayden Young on the weekend against the Gold Coast midfield. I don't think that Dimmer tags, even in the Richmond heydays, they don't tag. They just send them head-to-head. see who comes out on top. And with that reasoning, McCluggage is a perfect pick in this way to bounce back. I think he does bounce back in a big, big way. Rossco, do you want to take us through the Suns midfielders?
Yeah, look, I think I'm quite big again on Rao and Anderson. I know their Supercoach scores were not exceptional. Their game day squad scores were not exceptional either. But it was a tricky game. It was both their first final. I think they'll be a bit more accustomed to playing against Brisbane. As you say, neither of them are probably going to be having to occupy a sort of shutdown role on anyone. I don't think anyone on the Brisbane side will be playing a shutdown role on them. And I know in their last game against Brisbane, as you can see there, Rao scored 143 Supercoach, Anderson scored 128 Supercoach, and they went bigger than that in game day squad. So I don't know if I'd be going uber platinum with Rao and Anderson for game day squad, but I think they're worth consideration in Supercoach, and I think they're worth consideration as, maybe golds or bronzes in a game day squad format, I think, for me. Now, DR, I actually had an interesting question for you. It's not about the midfield, it's about the rucks. Now, I know last weekend they said against Geelong, Fagan said that McInerney was fit and able to play, but Fordy was going too well. Now, Fort got towed up by Blitzarves. Like, if we're sort of keeping it honest, like Blitzarves dominated him around the ground, won the hit-outs quite comprehensively. They won the ball out of the middle. Is McInerney going to come back in?
I hope so, but I don't think if he does, it's actually going to be for Fort. I think that Fort keeps his spot, but what I'd actually like to see, and this is no offense to Sam Day or Ty Gallop, to be honest, I think Fort could provide more of a contest than what Sam Day's been giving us up forward. So I'd be chucking Darcy Fort up forward, putting Oscar in the ruck, and that would also allow Fort to be that second ruck and be able to give Oscar a fair chop out. Chuck Oscar down forward for a few minutes here and there. I think that Gallop will definitely keep his spot because Dunkley mentioned Gallop in his press conference and said, look, we've got faith that he's so close to a big breakout game, all the rest. But I'd love to see us actually go with both Fort and the Big O. I don't know if other people would agree with that, but at the moment, I just don't think that poor old Sam Day is giving us anything close to what we need up there. So I'll be changing it up, to be quite honest.
Now, did Sam Day actually play last weekend?
He did. He did.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah.
No, I don't mean to snipe him or anything, but I just didn't notice him that much.
No, well, that's because, again, I don't want to whack the bloke. He's past his best and all that. But he just did not provide close to a contest for us, Rossco. So I just don't see how he keeps his spot. I think Gallop, he got a nice contested mark, nice little handball off and did a couple of nice things. But it can't say the same for Day. Not to bash Sam Day, but yeah, I'd love to see the Big O in again, mate. Heart and soul type player. And you talk about, the emotion of the game. Those boys with Oscar in the huddle, you'd definitely walk taller and you'd want to win for that bloke.
100%.
If we talk about the forwards then, mate, I think this is where we get to the Zach Bailey conjecture because he's the standout forward across the mix. You can make a case for Levi Ashcroft. But here's the situation. Let's look from a Supercoach perspective to begin with. You can pick 3 Brizzy players, and there's probably 5 that stand out. You've got the positional scarcity of Zach Bailey as a forward. You've got the positional scarcity of Dane Zorko as a defender, but then you have 3 standout mids in McCluggage, Dunkley, and Will Ashcroft. Off those 5, do you go 1 from each line? Do you go 2 mids and 1 of Bailey or Zorko? Or do you look elsewhere? Let's start with you, DR. What is your current strategy around the maximum 3 Brizzy players as Supercoach options?
I'm locking in 3. And when I say locking in, I've penciled in 3. I've got Zorko down back. I've got McCluggage, who expecting a big bounce back in the midfield. And then I've gone with Rat Bailey up forward. So I've skipped Josh Dunkley for now. And this may be a little bit controversial. Mm-hmm. Now, you boys are the best of the best when it comes to numbers. Look at this spread that you put on for us and you put on for us each and every single week. But boys, gut feel's got to come into it sometimes.
Mm.
And again, I've mentioned Josh Dunkley.
Yeah.
I mentioned Josh Dunkley today. He was so steely in his resolve. And I tell you, Janath, Rossco is going to be up for it, this man. He is such a proud man. I fully expect him to take Rao out of the game, boys. Rao's. I'm going to go early with my avoid. It's Matt Rao. I'm going nowhere near this bloke because we have the best defensive two-way runner in the game in Josh Dunkley, and he's going to take it upon himself, boys, in my humble opinion, and absolutely do his best to take Matty Rao out of the game. And if I know last time Rao absolutely got the chocolates, but if you look before that, Dunkley's done a fantastic job on him, and I think he's going to absolutely do that job on the weekend. So I've got faith in Josh Dunkley, but the reason why I may slightly, and I'm not saying avoid him in Supercoach, but allow myself to not select him to give myself the Rat Bailey option is because I think that he will be really focused on Rao, really botting up in those stoppages and playing more of a defensive role than probably what he has in the last, sort of 6 to 8 weeks. So that's another caveat as to why I wouldn't rate Josh Dunkley as high as McCluggage. Remember last week, boys, I had Dunkley as the highest rated Lion. He was my lockout of the Lions. I was worried that McCluggage might get tagged, and Lachie Neale coming back from injury, that worried me as well. So managed to nail that last week. This may be a very big call and could come back to bite me in the bum, and I could look a little bit silly, but I've just got such tremendous faith in Josh Dunkley. I think he's going to do the job on Matt Rao. So I'm going to avoid him, boys.
Very, very interesting, mate. But it's also interesting you're avoiding Dunkley in the same means. He's my captain at the moment.
Yeah, it's scary.
Don't tell me that, Janath.
I've got him captain. I've got Hugh McCluggage with the VC and Dane Zork, and not on Zach Bailey at the moment. So, Rossco, is that similar for you? Is that the same?
I've got the same three as you: Zorko, McCluggage, Dunkley, VCC.
Yes.
Have you both got Dunkley in your VCC combos?
Yeah, that's my VC and C right there. C Dunkley, VC McCluggage.
Oh, this is going to go very badly for me, isn't it?
No, mate. Well, look, this is why we all have our own opinions. But Zach Bailey does stand out as a big forward option this week, and that's where it becomes a bit difficult because I don't think you can go near Bailey Humphrey or Ben King or any of the other Gold Coast forwards. There's no real Gold Coast forward that stands out necessarily, even though Humphrey did perform quite well in his in the matchup last time round. He's not really the type that you can really count on week in, week out. If you really want a left field one, Levi Ashcroft. With Lachie Neale out, does he get the midfield minutes available as a forward? I'm pretty sure. Yes, he is available as a forward. Could you go there instead of a Zach Bailey? But again, you run into that same problem of the 3 Brizzy players there. So, or more, 3 or more Brizzy players. So that's going to be very, very tough. Should we head into our locks of words and pods?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Who's kicking us off?
I might start us off.
All right, mate.
Yeah, with the locks. And I think Josh Dunkley is the biggest lock from a Supercoach perspective this is. He was my first pick. As soon as Lachie Neale was out, you saw how he performed last week, like even kicking the goal near the end. Like he was trying to drag the team over the line to no avail, but really, really strong there. As a pod, Will Ashcroft. We've seen what he can do.
Yeah, nice.
We've seen what he can do in finals. Again, he performed last week. Again, no Lachie Neale. Same thing where the midfields don't tag. Easy midfields to score against. I think that's a pod there. And then in terms of avoid, this one is tough. I think Bailey Humphrey. I talked about it before. I just don't think you can bank on him. I'm just tolling. The avoid there. You have another avoid, mate. You were mentioning.
Yeah, no, I got plenty.
Just before. You're fine, mate.
Yeah.
So yeah, Bailey Humphrey as the avoid there. So DR, we'll go to you, mate, with your lock, pod, and avoid.
Yeah, and just on Humphrey, a big reason why he was in my void category, he kicked the 3 goals last week, but only the 63 Supercoach points. So it's like, where's he going to find that ceiling? We talked about someone like a Moore. If you're kicking 3 for 63 Supercoach points, where's that ceiling that we're looking for with that last forward spot? So I really like that avoid, mate.
He's a monster, though. that first goal that he kicked.
Wasn't it? Yeah. Talented player. He's got the talent there to make an impact. Look, my lock, I've got a few here. Look, I'm actually going to go with Noah Anderson as my lock. I gave you my thoughts about what I think may happen with Matt Rowell and Josh Dunkley going head-to-head there, and maybe Dunkley doing a bit of a job on him. But I'm expecting Anderson to pretty much go head-to-head with McCluggage, and I think both of them will have a pretty aggressive mindset. So, again, we talk about captains all the time. Captain of the club. He's just a phenomenal player. He'll do everything he can to win. So I think he's going to be a pretty easy midfield lock for me, boys, given the fact that I'm not as big on Real as maybe what you two blokes are. The pod for me, I had Will Ashcroft as my pod, Janath, as the one pod, because I really think he's going to be almost that forgotten midfielder. Is the only slight that there is no way in the world is there that Dim would look at last week's game and go, well, right, Neil's out of that midfield. We probably expect Dunkley and Rao to go head to head. Do we actually chuck Took in there, get him to go a bit old school and actually do a bit of a job on McCluggage? We know that Took is, if Dunkley's the best two-way runner in the comp, I think Took's definitely up there in the top handful. What percentage, boys, would you give of that happening? Just based off last week. So Dimmer think to himself, look at what happened when Huey got taken out of the game last week. What do you give it, a 5% chance? Less? We know that they don't tag. That's what the data suggests. But do they just completely put Brisbane off? Look, I don't know. I suppose it's a bit of a rhetorical question.
I just don't think they have anyone that can do it.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what, Rossco? One good thing about what I heard about McCluggage last week, apparently as soon as the game finished, he had a quick discussion with Dunks and said, you know what, I should have done this, this, and this. And from what Dunkley was saying is like, Huey basically knew straight away after the game what he should have been doing and maybe what he should have been changing. He's such a professional, Huey. So I'm really expecting him to bounce back. He's such an important player for us. So that would be my slight concern there. But I know I'm going off track a little bit there.
What I would add to that is that O'Shane Mullen is probably the hardest tagger in the game. Hugh McCluggage was tagged by James Jordan. I think he was round 22, very late in the season, and he got away from it. He broke Jordan. As in, McCluggage can break tags with just his elite run, but you can't break a Mullen tag. We've seen it with Sack Butters. We've seen it multiple times throughout the season, that he's the hardest tag in the game. Like, just dead set, doesn't stop. So I think McCluggage might get a tag from Miller, but if you think about it, you get to the semifinals, you haven't tagged all season. You played two brilliant midfielders on the weekend that were looking to take the game away from you in Sarong and Brayshaw, and you still don't tag. Why would you change all of that because a coach did it one way the previous week? I just don't see it from that perspective.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right, mate, because he's my captain at the moment, Huey McCluggage. So I'm expecting him to go well, but just putting it out there, you got to think of all the pros, all the cons to these type of picks. But hopefully he doesn't get too much attention, mate. Yeah. Look, for my pod, I'll just throw Jared Witts out there then. I'll throw Jared Witts out and maybe a Levi Ashcroft, as you mentioned before. The data looked much better for the other two blokes, but if it's against Darcy Fort, I just think that Witts, being that bigger body, ex-captain, bit more on the line possibly for him, you could go him there as a bit of a pod. And the avoid, I've already given mine, Matt Rowell. And I'm going to stick to that, boys, at the moment. I'm sticking to my gut, and it could be completely wrong, but sometimes you just got to back yourself, potentially go away from the crowd, and I'm going to continue to do that. So no Rowley for me. Rossco, there's still a few names on the board for sure.
Yeah. I think this makes it pretty easy for me, actually. I think my lock is Dane Zorko. Pretty keen to have him in again. I think he's the best defensive option easily, even if Gold Coast do put some work into him. On paper, before knowing what's going to happen, I still rate him higher than John Noble. I rate him higher than your Josh Worrells, your Rory Lairds. I rate him higher than any Hawthorn kickers, Amon Impey. So I think he's the lock there. For me, my pod is Jasper Fletcher. Now, he's the other sort of ball mover. I got it wrong last week with Wilmot, the Pepsi Max King. Jasper Fletcher is actually the one that I think Brisbane are setting up to be the prime mover, the uncontested sort of. I think Wilmot has a halfback role, but he's sort of a bit more defensively liable than Fletcher is. And I think I'm just keen to see, I think Fletcher was on like 70 at halftime, but then only finished on 95 as the heat sort of went out of the game a little bit. I think in a contested game this week, I think he can go better than that. And I'm pretty keen to have him in.
Cool.
In game day squad, he's a midfielder. So that keeps him bronze for me because I think there's better midfielders. But I'm keen to have him in. And I think I'm keen to have him in Supercoach. But I'm not 100% sure because there's those Brisbane options that are already available. Now, in terms of my fade, in terms of my fade this week, I'm going to go with Cam Rayner. Now, I like him for game day squad, but I just don't like him for Supercoach. And I think perhaps the controversy surrounding what happened last week got to his head a little bit. And I'm sure you'd probably agree, DR. There were a couple of points where I think he could have played a bit team first, and he sort of took it on to, try and really drive them in. I think I remember one from the boundary line where he was just tried to run through everyone and he snapped it and he nearly kicked it out on the full. Like, I was
probably well and truly at the bar by then, Rossco. I think,
I think before those free kicks sort of got him into the game, he hadn't really done anything at all. And I think the Suns are going to try and get in his head again, put him off. And I just don't really like it, especially from a Supercoach perspective.
Very nice, mate.
Just very quickly on that, sorry, do Brisbane just drop Sam Day, bring another small in, and just play this bloke out of the goal square, maybe? Oh, no, you got to do something different because our forward's not functioning.
Bodie Euland on Rayner.
That'd be his matchup. I rate Euland highly.
Yeah.
I think he's a fantastic player. Fantastic.
He won them the game, probably. Player. With that intercept mark, he won them the game.
And he was he in that draft that we redrafted as well?
He was in the.
Because I remember,
I think he was a preseason pick in that year.
Yeah,
to keep him out. Yeah, because I was seriously having him in close to top 10 contentions when I was redrafting that. I really rate Euland. Yeah, great player.
From a GDS perspective, boys, is there anything? Do we change any names up? Like, are you avoiding Raul in GDS as well? Having to pick 6 midfielders?
Probably not. No, I think, and that's the great thing about being able to pick some extra midfielders in GDS. If my gut feel is completely off here, and he does go off and do something like he did last time, at least I've got him in the other format. So no, I'll be running him in GDS, mate, for sure. Yeah.
Maybe only a bronze.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah.
But
not that I own a gold. But
with so few cards, though, it's almost like beggars belief. You just have to. You can't pick what you play. You just play what you have. In a way.
Yeah.
But I think Darcy Wilmot, John Noble, we could talk about even a Touk Miller, perhaps. These names become super relevant in GDS. And I think there's most of the names on here may find your way into a squad. Players like Jasper Fletcher and Levi Ashcroft, they've gone different ways. They both started as midfielders, but Fletcher's got defensive DPP. Levi Ashcroft is forward DPP for Supercoach. But in GDS, they're both midfielders only, so maybe a bit tougher to fit those two in. But I think someone like a Zach Bailey is a lock and load all the way in GDS. He may actually be the best scoring GDS player this week as a forward. Boys, before we go on wrap up, should we talk some captains? So I think, would you say there's 3 or 4 names, perhaps, that are captaincy worthy? In my opinion, I think Jordan Dawson can get a shout.
Yeah, I'm backing him again.
We can talk about Josh Dunkley, Hugh McCluggage, and then Raul and Anderson, whichever one you think will go better. So probably 5 there. Rossco, we both have Dunkley 1, McCluggage 2. How do you rank the other 3 there? So that's Dawson, Raul, Anderson amongst that mix. Even Zorko. You could add Zorko into that mix as well.
Yeah. It's tricky. I reckon they all probably get to around 110 to 130. So, I think I'd actually have Zorko 3. I think I just like the matchup for Zorko. And obviously he's come out and he's played a big game last week, even though they lost, in a game that they should be much more in. I think, till the end. I think Zorko's my 3. I'd probably be a bit scared to back Dawson, but at the same time, I'm worried because I don't want to take the captain on again at home. Although I think I'm going to put him last, and then I'll put Noah over Rao, I think.
Yeah.
So that's Dunkley, McCluggage, Anderson, Dunkley, McCluggage, Zorko, Anderson, Rao, Dawson. But I got it wrong last week. Well wrong. So
that's okay. Look, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Oh, look, you're the expert, mate. So we'll finish off with you. Number one for me is McCluggage.
Plug.
Look, the man's going to bounce back from last week. I don't think that they will tag, and I expect him to go off. And just very quickly with you, he has been carrying a slight knee injury for the past, I think, 6 to 8 weeks. It has been strapped. So that bloke is carrying something, and what a season. What a season he's playing. Dawson, it's just gut feel. He's got to bounce back, doesn't he? He has to bounce back, this bloke. So I've got Dawson at number 2, Anderson at 3, followed by Dunkley, Zorko, then Rao.
Sorry, just repeat that. Clug, Dawson,
Anderson,
Dunkley,
Zorko,
Dunkley at 4,
and Rao. Yep.
Interesting. All right. So I'm going to go Dunks first, Clug second. I'm going to put Noah Anderson at 3, like you, DR, but I'm going to have Jordan Dawson at 4. So Dawson 4, Rao 5, as Zorko 6. Just because Dane Zorko didn't play quite well. I don't think he's actually played well in either of their matchups this year. Yes, only a 66 and a 95 in the 2 matchups this year. So just a bit wary there that they might look to do something with him because he's the key ignite off the back line. In saying that, though, he's still in my Supercoach side, which I'm going to just reveal very quickly for week 2. So this is what we're running with at the moment. Zorko Noble, Captain Dunkley, Huey McCluggage with the VC, Noah Anderson, Lloyd Meek, Riley Thilthorpe, Dylan Moore. This position is probably the hardest one to nail down. And then a little bit of a pod play then, Rory Laird. So got Rory Laird in the flex there. Not too sure. It can't be a Brisbane player. That's the thing. So it has to be someone from the other 3 teams. So yeah, a bit struggling there. Might be a Dawson. Not too sure. It's going to be Laird or Dawson probably though. All right, we'll move on to DR. Do you want to just show your team at the moment?
Yeah, sorry, mate. I'm just the screen is just loading for me at the moment. Rossco, do you want to get yours up, mate? If yours is
let's go.
Ready to go. I've just got a big loading thing going around the thingy, mate.
All right, let's have a look here. So I've gone with Zorko and Noble, like you, Janath. Mm-hmm. I've got Dawson, Rao in there, but then I've got VC, Clug, Captain Dunkley, Meek, Thilthorpe, and Ginnivan in the tricky spot there. So, as you can see, I'm looking at Humphrey there on the side. So, he's becoming an option. We have to obviously consider all options. But I think I'm pretty happy with Ginnivan at the moment. And I am actually going out to the pub on Friday night for a raffle and dinner with my mates. So I'll be cheering Guinea on all the way.
Guinea pig.
But hopefully I'll win the members draw as well.
All right, boys. I think, come on. Can you guys see that on the screen?
It's loading. Yep, we can see it.
All right, there we go. So at the moment, I've gone the desk Rory Laird along with my man Dane Zorko, Dunkley Anderson, and at this stage, my pod is Jai Newcomb. And a big reason for that. Oh, hang on, what's Dunkley doing there? Get out, Josh.
Gee, mate.
Sorry. That's got to be Hugh. I don't know what's happened there. Must have been playing around with something. So that's got to be Huey McCluggage, and he is going to be my Capitano. Don't you worry about that. Noah Anderson, Newcomb, Meek in the ruck, Thriller, Bailey, and Giordano Dawson. But after our discussion, boys, it's going to be see you later, Rat. See you later, Newcomb. If I don't put Josh Dunkley in my side and Rossco and the Professor have him as their number 1 captain, I think I've got rocks in my head. Sometimes you've just got to do the right thing.
You got to go with your bat. You got to go with your gut sometimes, mate.
And I've convinced myself when I was talking about that ceiling before to go with Dylan Moore, because he's that bloke that you never know if he could actually go big. And that will then allow me to then run with Josh Dunkley there as well.
Yeah.
So a bit of a change as we've been talking through the potty, lads.
Love it, mate. Well, Rossco, do you want to finish this up?
Yeah. Well, the squads are looking somewhat similar, but I'm sure we'll chop and change over the next few days. Captains might change. You never know. We've obviously got to wait for team news to come out and see how that can be affected as well. But hopefully we should be in for 2 ripping games of footy this weekend. I think they're both actually quite evenly matched. I know last week a lot of us got our tips very wrong. I think I actually got 2 somehow.
I got 1 out of 4.
0.
I got 1.
Yeah, Janath got 1. But I think this round is even harder. So, we could easily go 2 from 2. We could easily go 0 from 2. But hopefully that has been enjoyable. That has been engaging. And we've all sort of learned something a little bit. DR, I know you've tried to scare me off on Jack Ginnivan being coming off the track early, and Josh Dunkley possibly playing a defensive role on Rao and impacting his own scoring. But we've got to back our gut, as you say, gut feel. So we'll see how it all goes.
I've got some inside information on Guinea. Actually, he actually got on the plane early, so he didn't get door stopped at the airport. That's why he was taking the earlier flight. Yep.
Okay.
Really?
Okay.
No.
Maybe you did some
I've just made that up. Him and Adelaide Airport is a love made in heaven.
Isn't it?
Well, boys, any final words before we sort of wrap this up?
No, look, just good luck to everyone in both formats for the week. Look, it's been a big day in Supercoach, boys. I'm not even going to get into it now, but one of my other favourite formats, the classic version, has just died in the backside, boys. Let me tell you that.
Off NBL.
NBL.
Off NBL, mate.
Wow. No words for it. No words for it at the moment, but our classic game of NBL is Gonski, non-existent anymore. So don't know if I'll be participating in that. Maybe some extra early research for the 2026 AFL season, lads.
Mate, there's always a good time. And I just want to say on a GDS sort of perspective, if you got some random players from these games, just put in a champion team. Like if you're not playing for contender, you got some random plats or goals sitting around of these blokes. You never know, because a lot of top coach will also struggle with just how few good options there are. So just put something in. If you get prized with the top 3, if you can somehow snag a first finish somehow, you never know. You're laughing. So
exactly right.
Yeah, just have a go. If you haven't already, give yourself a go at Game Day Squad. Use our code PEANUT. You get 3 times 9 player common packs. You could pack some good players from those for these matchups in particular. So head on over to the Game Day Squad app and give it a go if you haven't already.
Yep, can see it down there in the bottom corner. And don't forget as well, guys, that we have a heap of merch available at supercoachswordplay.com. Janath and I are both running the polo at the moment, our beanies. And remember, special offer at the moment, whenever you do get one of our polos, we'll also donate $5 like we do with our beanies to the Royal Children's Hospital Good Friday appeal. So it'll be much appreciated. You're helping out the Royal Children's Hospital as well as us as well and supporting us through the channel. So if you are interested in that, supercoachswordplay.com, everything you need there, legends.
And one last thing, sorry, just keep adding things on here. We will draw out the giveaway winners from last week. We just wanted to make sure whether if someone got all four high scorers correct last week, we want to give them a prize. We're going to go through that and draw that out tomorrow. What we also want, though, is for you guys to put down in the comment section who you think will be the highest scoring GDS scorer in both games, and we'll give away a pack for that as well, if you can nail both. So good luck with that. Good luck with Supercoach. Good luck with GDS, and we'll see you guys next week.
Sounds good. See you guys.